Believe it or not, it's been 10 years since Hideo Kojima unveiled PT, the playable trailer for the proposed but eventually cancelled Silent Hill reboot. In that time, we've seen a lot of really good horror games that were inspired by Konami's short but effective horror preview. Unfortunately, we've also seen a lot of truly awful PT imitators. The Street 10 by Moldovan developer Random Spin definitely falls into that latter category. It's a game that promises scares and spooky situations, yet underdelivers in the most frustrating way possible. Is this the year's first truly awful game? Well, that's what we're about to find out when I review The Street 10. Oh boy, where do I even start with The Street 10? This is a game that claims to be a walking simulator where you're stuck in an infinite alley in Tokyo and are trying to find a way out. The developer hints that there's a puzzle to solve and terrifying situations around every corner. But this oddity doesn't really fit into either the puzzle or horror genres, and I'm not even sure that I would classify it as a walking simulator. The truth is, The Street 10 is a baffling exercise in patience, almost daring you to have a good time. At its most basic, this is a game about trying to escape a back alley. Much like PT, it's a game where the linear path seemingly loops over and over, so the goal is to break that cycle and find a way out of the 10 stages. As you loop through what feels like a series of identical alleyways, you'll start to notice the small things on your path, such as a man walking down the street, a couple of vending machines, the neon signs, the flowers, and bikes parked along the sidewalk. The game wants you to memorize this layout. That way you can react accordingly when the walking guy suddenly has a clone or the sign starts to talk about UFOs for some reason. Presented in the first person, this is the kind of game where you really only have two choices. You can walk to the end of the path and have the game loop right back around to where you started, or you can turn around and leave through the way that you just came, and then have the game loop right back to where you started. In other words, you're stuck in a loop, no matter which way you choose to go. What this teaches you to do is to pay attention to the number on the crosswalk sign. You start at 1 and work your way all the way up to 10, where you can exit the loop and beat the game. But watch out now, because the wrong choice will take you back all the way to the first stage. So the goal is to correctly choose the right path 10 times in a row. The tricky part is that the game doesn't actually tell you what it's looking for, which means that you're probably going to spend the first 10 or 20 minutes just trying to figure out what's going on. Now, the first thing you're going to notice is that sometimes the levels will change. A lot of this involves the walking guy, who might be bald in one loop and gray in the next. Sometimes he'll stare you down as he walks the street, while other times he'll stumble around diagonally, literally bouncing off of the walls. Your instinct tells you that this is important. It must mean something. But what? What way am I supposed to go when it's a really big guy or if it's a teeny tiny guy? Should I go the same way in both cases, or does one of them signify going forwards and the other one wants me to go backwards? A little clarity would have been nice here, guys. Of course, there is a fairly obvious reason why the game wants you to solve this puzzle. You see, once you've figured out what the game is looking for, you'll be able to blow through the 10 looping stages in just a few minutes. I'm talking probably less than 10. And then, when you've done that, you'll be treated to a truly terrible ending that is only there to remind you that the whole thing has no point and adds up to absolutely nothing. It's just a colossal waste of time. And if that wasn't bad enough, the trophies actually hint at a much more compelling horror game. They'll say that you dared to purchase from the possessed drink machines, survived the ghostly ride on the anomalous bikes, and discovered the secrets of the ancient silver-haired phantom. But folks, I'm here to tell you that I didn't do any of that. The trophies talk about ghosts and hauntings and phantoms and demons and spooky events. Yeah, there's nothing like that in the actual game. It honestly feels like the trophies are just lying to you. The whole thing comes across as nothing more than false advertising. Look, I get it. This is a cheap game that is supposed to be a short experience. Honestly, I have no problem with that. I've given plenty of smaller, shorter games high marks in the past. My complaint is that there's nothing here to recommend. The graphics look like the alley was constructed using pre-existing assets that the developer copied and pasted with no care at all. The story is non-existent, complete with an ending that feels a lot like a slap on the face. There's also no music and barely any atmosphere, as the only thing you hear is the ambiance, which doesn't really match the location. Really, the only thing good about this game is that it has a menu page where you can adjust the first-person controls, which, if I'm being honest, is the only reason that the Street 10 is not getting a failing grade. Don't be fooled by the description and the incredibly misleading trophies, because the Street 10 is a mindless exercise in repetition and simple puzzle solving. It won't take long to understand the pattern, and when you do, you'll be able to complete the entire game in less than 10 minutes. That might be fine if it had a compelling story or at least a few genuine scares, but this game makes absolutely no effort to give you anything interesting to grab onto. I hate to say it, but the Street 10 is the year's first truly terrible game. Hey, thanks for watching our review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. In fact, you should go and check out the video review playlist, where we have well over 800 reviews at this point. I mean, come on, it's pushing 1,000. Now, here's the question I have for you. What's your favorite first-person horror game? Oh man, there have been a bunch since PT, but even before that, you had Fear and Alien Isolation. Can't wait to see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back later this week with more reviews, as well as maybe a new episode of Magazine Knockout. We'll see what happens. While you wait for that, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.